Just like a fisherman will change bait in order to catch their fish, narcissists will change whatever manipulation tactic they are using so as to be successful in their manipulation. And so today we're going to dive into their toolbox and pull out the manipulation tool of triangulation. Now, narcissists love to use this tool with the goal to divide and conquer. So bottom line, causing divisions is a powerful strategy that can create tremendous destruction, from civilizations to families to the internal destruction of your self-esteem or your self-worth. And narcissists know this. And so one of the ways that they achieve causing divisions is with this tool of triangulation. So let's break it down. In this video, I want to talk about what is triangulation. I want to give you some examples of different scenarios where you might be able to notice it, especially when it comes to covert narcissists. It can be so subtle. We really have to understand what it looks like. And then last but not least, if you feel like you're a victim of this emotional manipulation, then you're going to want to watch to the end because I'm going to give you some tips that can help. So let's dive in. For those that don't know me, my name is Michele. I'm a survivor myself of narcissistic abuse. I'm now a trauma-informed coach. I'm a somatic experiencing practitioner, and I'm the founder of the School of Transformation, where survivors of emotional trauma for whatever reason, whether it's any form of abuse or neglect, meet live weekly on Zoom, and we do the inner healing work together. Leave the link here for you so that you can check it out and see if it's a good resource for you. I want to really first uncover the most sinister motive that's behind triangulation. Underneath their need for drama, their desire to cause divisions, their desire to make you look crazy is the real reason that they create triangulation. And that has to do with their need to hide the real problem, the real issue, which is usually that the toxic person is either crossing boundaries of someone, lying, manipulating, gaslighting, lacking respect for someone, being highly critical or negative, or has an insatiable need or appetite for attention and control. These unhealthy relationship patterns, they're the real problem that the narcissist does not want to face, because the narcissist does not like to self-reflect. They don't like to feel as if they need to work on anything because their ego and false image won't let them see that they are just as human as anyone else and that they too have flaws that need attention. But rather than seeing that and being willing to do personal development, they prefer to use manipulation tactics like triangulation so that there's so much confusion that the real problem, their real behavioral problems, go unseen by the emotionally inexperienced parties, and the blame gets carried by somebody else. Now that we know the why behind what they do, let's shift into 3 scenarios where you might notice this. And we're going to go to the 3 areas of our life that are most important. We're going to go to work, family, and friends. So in the work environment, when a narcissist is wanting to one-up you, this can often show up when a narcissist will love bomb a supervisor or somebody in a position of authority and will slowly poison that person's perception of you. And now the crazy thing is that it doesn't feel like they're smearing your name the way the narcissist does it. They might say things like, I really think so-and-so is a great worker. I'm really happy to be on so-and-so's team, but smear, 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 but I'm really appreciative of, learning a lot from this person. And so because they smear by saying positive and tossing in just a little bit of negativity, that causes people to believe them because they're not being so negative, right? And they don't look problematic. But when the innocent party hears about it, they can often react, and rightly so, in a very upset way. And unfortunately, that's then pointed out as you being the problem. I will say this, in a work environment, it doesn't always just have to do with the boss or climbing up the ladder by stepping on you. Sometimes it's just about being more liked and believed, right? So it can be among your coworkers. In other words, covert narcissists are okay with cutting off their nose to spite their face. In other words, they're okay with doing things that in the long run are not great for them, but in the moment allow them to be more liked and more noticed by others. I've had clients talk about different work scenarios where the narcissist will set them up before a meeting where they'll be saying things that don't make sense, saying things to cause a reaction, but when they get to the meeting, they're not talking about those things. They're completely calm and reasonable, but the person that they were talking to prior to the meeting is all riled up now. They've just set that person up to look bad, and there's their way of, maybe they feel inferior to that other coworker, but by setting them up like that, they reestablish the balance of I'm here and that person is there. Moving on to more personal relationships like our family. Let's talk about what triangulation looks like. If you're learning about covert narcissists, you're probably familiar with the terms scapegoat and golden child. This is a form of triangulation where a narcissistic parent basically splits their own personality in half and projects all that they like onto the golden child, where that golden child can do no wrong, and all that they don't like in themselves gets projected onto the one they force into the role of scapegoat. Whenever you hear scapegoats and golden children describing their childhood, it sounds like they're two people that lived in completely different environments, yet they lived under the same roof. For example, how amazing and great the parent is through the eyes of the golden child sounds foreign to the scapegoat, and the abuse, neglect, criticism that the scapegoat endured sounds foreign and as if it's made up and a lie to the golden child. So there's a few reasons why they do this, why they triangulate with their children. One of the reasons is they get to control the narrative about what's going on, but also they get validation from the golden child that they're not the problem, that it's the scapegoat that's causing all of the problems. It also allows them to get a tremendous amount of attention in a very maladaptive way. That dynamic of golden child and scapegoat can also be created between spouses. And what I mean by that is this is another dynamic that you might see triangulation in a family unit, where the narcissistic parent makes the children, whether there's 1, 3, 5, or 10, all golden children, and their spouse becomes the scapegoat. Now, I had a client once tell me that she grew up in that dynamic from a very young age. The narcissistic parent, who at the time she didn't realize was the one causing all of the problems, was blaming the other parent. All of the children bought into that reality and that story. They had a very estranged relationship even as she was growing up with both parents under the same roof. But after they divorced, she never really had a relationship with her mother until 2 years before her mother passed away. She was an adult and her mother was dying of cancer. And she said she got to know who her mother really was, and she could not believe that she had fallen for all of the lies that had taken place as she was growing up. And so I bring up that dynamic because I've also worked with a lot of spouses in that situation where their children and the whole family was turned against them. There was no scapegoated child. And so it's confusing until they realize that they were placed on that trauma triangle as the persecutor, as the one that was the problem, as the one that carried all of the blame, and they themselves were the scapegoat. And so I just kind of want to bring up why narcissists do this in their family, because it can kind of make sense, not that you like it in a work environment, but it can make sense that somebody's trying to one up, somebody's trying to get ahead in an unhealthy way, right? But why do this in the family? Well, the reason is twofold. One being that they're trying to hide the real problem, that the covert narcissist has unhealthy behavior patterns. They're selfish, they're entitled, they disrespect boundaries, they have a lack of empathy, they're not willing to self-reflect, they're not willing to take accountability. And so that's there and it's causing problems. Well, what do you do when you're causing problems that you don't want to work on, but yet you're not willing to work on yourself to bring about changes? Well, you triangulate somebody else into being blamed for the problems. So it hides the real problem. And I want to add that it also allows the narcissist to get double supply, both positive and negative supply. They get the positive supply from the children that are fooled into thinking that the narcissistic parent, the one causing all the problems isn't the victim, and that the other parent is the problem. That's a tremendous amount of positive supply that they get. They also gain the attention, the validation, the admiration that they desperately need in order to build up their fragile sense of self-worth and to keep their own toxic shame deeply hidden. And the children that are falling for this false image wind up supporting and validating the false self that the covert narcissist pretends to be. Now that's a tremendous amount of positive supply. Now the spouse that's being manipulated, gaslit, set up to be reactive, rejected, treated as the blame for every single thing that goes wrong, winds up providing negative narcissistic supply because the narcissist is intentionally provoking their significant other into emotional reactions that include fear, anger, resentment, helplessness, shame, doubt, insecurity. And the reason why narcissists opt for this route isn't just about attention, it's about control. Negative narcissistic supply makes them feel more in control and powerful, defending against the shame and helplessness that they feel deep down. And the last family dynamic when it comes to triangulation that I'm going to mention has to do with when either the scapegoat or the golden child grow up and start creating their own family systems. The narcissistic parent can triangulate either the scapegoat's significant other or the golden child's significant other. They just do it differently. For example, with the golden child's spouse or significant other, the narcissist will often make the spouse the scapegoat and have that alliance with the golden child. And so how they triangulate is they will strategically misbehave, be unkind, rude, unloving behind the golden child's back. So the golden child is never a witness to this bad behavior of their narcissistic parent because they will seemingly flip into this nice person when the golden child is around. Now this makes their spouse look crazy, paranoid, or oversensitive. And the goal of the narcissist, again, is to form that alliance with their child versus the scapegoated spouse of their child. In this way, they get the positive supply from their golden child and negative supply from their golden child's spouse. They triangulate completely opposite with their scapegoated child. The scapegoat's significant other, and I know this is like, I'm already getting a headache, but the scapegoat's significant other winds up being treated really well all the time. And so what happens is the scapegoated child stays the scapegoat. Their significant other sees a whole different version of their parent to the point that the significant other starts looking at their spouse, right? The scapegoated child, like, what's wrong with you? Like, your parent's amazing. There must be something wrong with you. You're too sensitive. And so now inadvertently, the narcissistic parent has triangulated and formed an alliance with their scapegoat's significant other, further isolating and invalidating their already abused child. They're once again creating both positive and negative supply through the relationship of the child and their spouse. This honestly has my head spinning right now, and I have not even finished my list. I have not gotten to the last dynamics that I wanted to mention, which is when you enter a friend group and there's a malignant covert narcissist that winds up making you the scapegoat. Now, I think for the sake of time, I'm gonna have a part B to this video. So I will put in what happens when you go into a friend group and there's a malignant narcissist, how they use triangulation, and then I will give you some tips on how you can break free of this manipulation tactic. And again, if you've been watching videos like this and you've been learning tips and yet still feel like you just can't break free from the suffering of narcissistic abuse, I want to invite you to my live Zoom meetings that I have every week. I meet with people from all over the world that are healing from childhood trauma, from CPTSD, from narcissistic abuse. We meet live on Zoom every week. So if you resonate with my videos and you want to join me live, I'll leave the link here for you. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon for when you're notified of my next video, which will be a continuation of this one.